But first, the Liberal Party will vote for a new leader this week. The choice is likely to be between two contenders, Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor and acting opposition leader Susan Lee. Now, the pair are locked in a tight contest, with both of them promising to end the so-called civil war between the party's conservative and moderate factions. Ahead of tomorrow's party room ballot, Angus Taylor has said he'll reward talent over factional allegiances, bring more women into the party's leadership and make the Liberal Party campaign fitter, flatter, faster and more focused. Meanwhile, Susan Lee has said that if the party elects her as leader, it would send a very strong signal that we understand that things must be done differently. She also told colleagues that the Liberal Party must respect modern Australia, reflect modern Australia and represent modern Australia. Sounds like Malcolm Turnbull in a skirt. Joining me now for more on this is Chief Economist and Senior Fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs, Adam Crichton. Adam, how do you see this contest?
Look, well, I'm not going to pick a personal favourite, but I do notice that in both their statements they've said nothing about policy yet, so I don't know, who's going to have the best set of policy. They've just made the usual slogans, anodyne phrases. Who do I think they will probably go with? I imagine Susan Lee, because she's a woman, and it's sad that that's a factor. I think people, should be choosing leaders on who's the best leader, not the sex of the person. But certainly the conventional political wisdom would be, go with a woman, because the Labor Party will find that harder to attack. But I don't think the party generally needs a lot of unity at the moment. It'd be fine with me if there was a lot of debate, a lot of squabbles going on, both in public and private, so the party can work out what they actually stand for. It's been a massive loss. There's no shying away from that. And my view is they need to get back to their core Liberal Party principles of low taxation, free speech, individual rights, enterprise, and so forth. They seem to have lost that, and so whichever leader is for that, that's the one that I would be for. Well,
the identity crisis is significant within the Liberal Party. Precisely who they are, what they stand for, that seems to be a confusing issue. And I think that was behind this really lacklustre, weak, unprincipled election campaign where they were Labor Lite, and they've had major donors tell them that. And if you're going to run another Labor Lite campaign, don't expect to see any donations from that group. On Susan Lee, who has added an extra S to her given name because of numerology. That's fantastic, isn't it? Well, she's just got a long track record of being on the wrong side of debates, from The Voice to the Middle East issue to cultural war issues. This is just last year. Now, some things you can say, well, she's changed her mind. That was 5 years ago. That was 10 years ago. This was last year. This is her promoting the deeply flawed activist gender wage report.
I'm pleased to see the scrutiny that is being applied today with the release of this data to organisations in Australia. My message to corporate Australia is it's not good enough to have a morning tea and cupcakes and pink icing.
Now, we had conservative women like myself, Janet Albrechtsen, we had senators like Alex Antic, Matt Canavan, picking holes in this ridiculous report. It had holes you could drive a truck through, deeply flawed, and yet we've got the deputy leader going there and advocating it like an activist. This is my problem with her, that she's led by the bureaucrats and she needs to be convinced that a position is an actual Liberal position. The Voice is a perfect example. She was pro-Voice and then she became an outspoken critic when the party adopted that position. Yeah, it's not exactly authentic.
No, look, certainly that's true. And to be fair, I know I've been away for 4 years out of the country, but Susan Lee's been around for a while, and I must say I don't really know what she does stand for. Whereas Angus Taylor, I could name a few things. He didn't run a great campaign.
No.
But yes, look, I think Susan's a bit of a weather vane in terms of whatever's going to work politically at the moment. And yes, you're right. That report, the so-called gender pay gap, completely vanishes statistically once you measure everything properly.
Yeah, that was what was troubling about that, and it was only last year. Now, we spoke to Senator Matt Canavan on Outsiders yesterday, and he talked about the tyranny of groupthink. It's what we saw at the last election, arguably, but where it was very difficult to ascertain what the difference between the two parties was. But we keep hearing these calls for unity, disunity is death. You've argued perhaps the obsession with unity can be counterproductive.
Yeah, look, it certainly is. I mean, as I said earlier, I don't think they really need unity at the moment. They need to work out what they stand for, and not just what they stand for, but also to see, who on the backbench might even make a better leader than the two that we've already mentioned. There could be some talented people there, and if there's unity, they won't be able to speak out. They'll just have to do whatever the leader does. But we have an obsession with unity, I think, in the political system. I mean, the parties can be a problem. I mean, factionalism is not a great thing. I mean, if you go back to George Washington or to Tocqueville, they argued against parties because they're extremely confrontational and combative, and they often don't work in the interest of the country, but they work in the interest of themselves. And so sometimes I think it'd be better to have a parliament of 150 independents and not have parties, so there'd be actual debate in the parliament rather than the debates already being sorted out.
Well, we were supposed to have the upper house, the Senate, be the state's house and have, instead of having party allegiances to each individual state, but of course that hasn't happened. Exactly. It's just gone down party lines. So that's where the unrepresentative swill line about the Senate began. And I think Paul Keating was spot on. I mean, how can you have someone in Tasmania whose upper house vote is worth, 20 times of that of someone in New South Wales? Now, let's have a look at this post-election assessment from Federal Vice President of the Liberal Party, Fiona Scott. This might give some indication as to why the party has completely lost its direction under the current leadership, why they ran such a woeful Labor Lite campaign. She has rejected comments made by former Liberal Prime Minister Tony Abbott and former Nationals Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson, who said that not all cultures are created equal. I would have thought that was a fairly self-evident statement, but she said there is good and bad in all cultures. It's ignorant to dismiss cultures or to rank cultures. It should be an aspiration for all people to do better, to strive to be better, and to celebrate diversity and uniqueness. Oh, God, where's my bucket? Adam, the Liberal Party lost in a landslide listening to that sort of advice, and it looks like those small L voices are being emboldened as opposed to being ashamed of their contribution to that loss.
Well, certainly the empirical record is very clear. Some cultures are superior to others. Western culture with, small government and individual rights has produced extraordinary economic growth over the centuries. So there's really no doubt about that. So I disagree with her there. I think our culture is much better just inherently. But look, where she might have a point is if you want to win elections in a country where 31% of people are born overseas, and that would include, many Muslims, many Chinese people, maybe trumpeting how great your own culture is not so helpful sometimes.
Well,
so
I don't think it was trumpeting. And I would argue if you've moved to Australia, particularly from a Muslim majority country, then there's a reason why you've moved here. And perhaps if those cultures were giving you precisely what you needed, whether it's in lifestyle or opportunity or freedom, then perhaps you would have stayed.
Yeah, look, that's a very good
where
point.
you were.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I just think that if the Liberal Party ever wants to win, in 10, 20 years, those southwestern seats in Sydney ever have
Why can't they win by appealing to the fact that these people are, one, socially conservative when the Labor has veered to the far left on those cultural issues and the Liberals are too terrified to debate them on it. And also these people are often, particularly new migrants to this country, are hugely aspirational. They come here seeking a better future for their children. They want to work. They want to build wealth. They want to be independent. They don't want to be reliant on welfare. And that's, again, something else you can appeal to. But this election, we had the Liberal Party opposing tax cuts, personal income tax cuts.
It was pretty ridiculous. I mean, it was a very centre-left campaign, I would say. All this stuff about it was too Trump is not, it's too right-wing. I mean, they can't point to a single policy that shows that. It was very centre-left. So if there's a problem, then it's that, not that it was too right-wing.
But the post-mortem analysis from all the usual hacks is that they need to veer further left. Every time they veer left, they lose and lose badly. We've seen it with previous campaigns, and we've seen it in Victoria, WA, elsewhere, and the learnings from it seem to be completely missing.